Hi there. So before I get started, just so you know, I have an allergic reaction in my right eye, and so it's hard for me to see the computer screen. So just bear with me on that. Now, today I am going to do the second part of my in-depth look at Lady C. Now, when I did the first part, I got a lot of undeserved backlash. And, well, let's listen to what I was told.
Oh, our recollections may vary. Let's clear this one up as well. Now, this woman channel, our recollections may vary. Well, my recollections are pretty clear on this one. In the summer last year, Wally told me about this woman and said this woman had contacted her and she wanted to be part of a WhatsApp group with me and Wally, the three of us, like Duchess Drop Bear. Well, I went, no fucking way, not after Duchess Drop Bear. I told Wally, no, I love you, Wally, but I do not trust your sense of judgment. I'm not going down this road again. So then this woman contacts Vivian, Gertie Rude. She won't get me through that. Gertie told me before she blocked me a few days ago. If you blocked me, you fucking idiot. That apparently our recollections may vary. Contacted Vivian to get to me.
I thought it was only fair to note that the only reason I was contacting Gertie Rude was to talk to Gertie Rude, because I liked Gertie Rude. I was a fan of Gertie Rude before I ever had a YouTube channel. And, in fact, before I ever knew who Fiona was. I knew who Gertie was. I thought she was hysterical. I think her parodies are wonderful. And when Gertie Rude reached out to me and suggested, I believe she suggested around October sometime, that I do a live with her, which we both agreed to, and we just have never had the time to do it. But it was to talk to Gertie Rude. It never occurred to me that I was speaking to Gertie Rude as a conduit to Fiona, because I didn't need it. I had other conduits to Fiona if I wanted them. I didn't. I didn't care to talk to her. She wasn't an end goal for me. She wasn't an entity for me. The arrogance to think that I was desperate to talk to her. No, never once. Because if I was, I would have reached out to her. It would have been that simple. I think it's also a good time to mention the whole reason that I got involved with doing videos about Wally was because a sub suggested it. A sub who now is no longer a sub of mine and who is also of the belief that I somehow courted Wally to get to Fiona. I don't even know what it is that they think because it's ridiculous, but someone asked me to do those videos. And that's when I got involved in it. I didn't do that of my own accord. I did that because someone specifically said, you're good at looking at things. Why don't you look at and tell Wally's story about why she lost her channel? And that's what I did. And that's how I got involved in it. And that's why I reached out to Wally. I reached out to Wally to say, hey, just so you know, someone suggested it. That's why I'm doing it. If there's anything you want me to say, if there's anything I can do to help, let me know. And that was it. But it's also worth noting that I was new enough to that part of the Megxit community that at the time, I didn't realize that there was a gatekeeper to conversing with Wally. Had I known that, I probably never would have done those videos in the first place.
I didn't want to know. I'm not into strangers coming at me. So then Viv told me a couple of weeks ago, well, our recollection may vary. We're sending her like 10 emails a day. Where's Fiona? Where's Fiona? Where's Fiona? Where's Fiona? Well, as a lot of you know, I did the live with Tom Markle Jr. Last year. Out my fucking mind, as usual. Well, I spend most of my life out my fucking mind. I don't mean drunk, I mean just going fucking crazy. And then this crazy bitch, who I've never had any contact with, emails me and says, you didn't ask my permission to have Tom Jr. on your channel. You owe me. I've defended you. La 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 la. Fuck off. Our recollection. Fuck off. I'm not interested. Oh, now that bitch gone wild. Just fuck off. And I've got these trolls saying I attack other YouTubers. You're bullying. Trevor volunteered to pay for lawyers for me. No, I'm not going down that road because I think these people are dog shit. They are just not worth bothering with. I see Our Recollections May Vary made the most disgusting video about Lady C today. I mean, anyone who follows that...
Now, in part 1, I did exactly what I am going to do again in part 2. I focused on the words and the video clips and the interviews of Lady C herself. I do not add all that much. I put them into context and I give my opinion on them. But I am not saying she did these things. I am showing you these things. And the reason that I am doing it is because Lady C is a primary source for Meghan Markle's years before she met Harry. She wants to be the primary source. In other words, she wants us to believe her narrative of Meghan's life before she joined the royal family. Now, if she wants to be in that position, she has to be willing to put her credibility to the test. It's normal and appropriate to evaluate her as a resource. And part of that evaluation means you need to look at their biases that they will bring into their evaluation of the situation in order to determine whether or not they are looking at it fairly, whether or not they have any preconceived notions that might be contributing. Sorry, Guinness just dropped his bone. That might be contributing to their opinion. All of those things are relevant and important to evaluating a source. So when you sit there and you want to see Lady C in the jungle and she is giving a very candid representation of herself, you have to go along with it and you have to take that into consideration. And if there is a situation or an instance where Lady C might stretch the truth a little bit while she's in the jungle, that's relevant. Because if she will do it then, will she also do it when she's writing her books? Now, a lot of people came into my comment section and said, Lady C is a very prominent royal historian. Well, good. I'm glad to know that. Because as a prominent royal historian, she would know that it is only right and proper to evaluate her credibility before looking at what she says about her story and her narrative and her presentation of any given situation. All historians expect that. So she must be well aware that this is what needs to be done, because that's what's part of the process of being a historian. You and your biases have to be evaluated. Now, in my first video, I kind of went over a little bit of her biography. Not a whole lot, just very cursory look at her early life. And then I just showed clips and interviews from her later years. This time, I want to look at some of the topics that Lady C has commented on, because some of them are very important when you then look at her interpretation of current events. In particular, there's her point of view on Prince Andrew.
First of all, good evening to you. Thank you for joining the show. I do think that, for example, we give, Meghan and Harry a hard time, I think justifiably in most cases. But what they've done, to be honest, pales into insignificance, in my opinion, to a senior member of the royal family paying millions of dollars to make a sex abuse case go away. But you don't share this view. You think he should be able to come back?
I certainly don't share this view. First of all, my information was that it's 5 figures was the settlement, and also each party had to pay its own costs and expenses. I know the press keeps on going on and on, banging the drum about several £1 million and $1 million. I don't know where they got it from, because the settlement was supposed to be confidential. So
well, if it's confidential, how do you know it's not? It's not
believable
millions.
As your 10 or 20 figures.
Well, how do you know? How do you know it's not if it's confidential?
Now, not only did Piers take the words literally right out of my mouth there, but it's a very important point, because she is sitting here saying that she has insider information. And when it comes to the Markle family, Lady C claims to also have insider information, which is all well and good. The problem is that she then says there is insider information and mine is the only correct information. She's doing the same thing here. And that sort of one-sidedness, where she doesn't ever present any evidence for it, like she doesn't in this case, beyond saying it's confidential so they shouldn't know, that's very questionable practice for any historian, royal or otherwise.
Well, my point is, how do you know that it's $11 million?
Well, no, it's been reported. It's been reported from very good sources. It was $11 million. If you're saying it was a much smaller sum, I'm just curious how you know.
It's not been reported from very good sources. I was told that from very good sources that it was a 5-figure sum.
That's not true. I can tell you, I know categorically that's not true.
Well, you mean you know categorically that
I know
you were told
100% that what you've just said is not true. It's not a 5-figure settlement. I know that for a fact.
Well, I know categorically that's what I was told, and I believe my source is rather more than yours.
Okay, well, you don't know who my source is, but if you did, you wouldn't say that. But look, let's move on.
That is another very important point, because if she isn't willing to tell her sources, then she can't say that categorically her source is better than his. And to be fair, neither can he. But the fact that she automatically dismisses any source but her own, that's all well and good. But you have conflicting reports, and the majority of the reports were not in her favor. So let's pretend, hypothetically, that her source was in fact, say, I don't know, Sarah Ferguson. If that was in fact her source, who's to say Sarah Ferguson is telling Lady C the truth? Or whoever it might have been. The person isn't important. The point is, she could have the very best source in the world, but we can't evaluate her source because she's not telling us who that is. And the same can be said of Piers. He's not telling us who his source is either. So the same applies. However, there are more sources reporting along the lines of Piers than there are reporting along the lines of Lady C. And as time told, we find out that it was very much so not a 5-figure sum. So Lady C's source was either incorrect or she was misrepresenting. I am going to give her the benefit of the doubt and say her source was misrepresenting, and she was just passing it on. But that's a very generous assumption.
To the wider point, whether it's
you
5
don't
figures,
know who my
whether
source is
look,
either, with
to be
due
honest,
respect.
look, whether it's 5 figures or millions or whatever it finally was, he settled a case having said he was going to fight it to clear his name. And I think if you do that as a senior member of the royal family, you should not be allowed to continue in public life.
Utter rubbish, Piers. With due respect, I mean, since when was this a country where you are guilty until proven innocent? This may play very well in the court of popular condemnation, but the reality is in this country, as in all civilized countries, you are innocent until you are proven.
Now, Lady C is correct in what she is saying here, in that the legal system in the UK is based on the premise that you are innocent until proven guilty. That's anybody who's likely listening to this, we're talking the UK, Western civilization, the UK, Australia, United States, Canada, Germany, France. Yes, all of our legal systems are based on that premise. However, she is talking about something which is an overriding premise of criminal law. When you talk about civil law, there is no innocent and guilt. It is liability and responsibility as opposed to not being liable or responsible. That's a whole different ballgame. And in our modern legal system, there are, I don't want to say loopholes, but there are ways around admitting liability so that it's not on a stain on your character that you are in fact liable. And that's what we're talking about here, because when you settle in a civil case, you are foregoing the principle of innocent until proven guilty, and you are accepting liability to an extent in order to avoid your liability being proven. And that has nothing to do with innocent and guilt. It's also worth noting that in a criminal court case, the idea is that you have to be proven guilty beyond reasonable doubt. Well, in a civil court case, it's based on the preponderance of the evidence, which it's not the same standard as a criminal court case. So in a civil court case, all that needed to be proven was that the preponderance of the evidence said that Prince Andrew may have been liable for whatever it was that he was being sued for. Again, very different standard than this innocent until proven guilty that Lady C is now discussing.
Why didn't he clear his name? He kept saying, I'm going to clear my name. Why didn't he clear his name? Why didn't he get a call?
Why didn't she? She kept on saying that she would never settle, that she wanted her day in court. She is an admitted procuress, prostitute.
No, you're making allegations now which are unsubstantiated, and I have to make that on the record.
They are
unsubstantiated allegations, and nothing that you're saying to.
She has admitted it.
Nothing you're saying to attack.
Admitted
nothing you're saying to attack the accuser, Lady Colin, will change the fact that Prince Andrew, who's nearly 30 years her senior, that he publicly declared just a few months before the settlement, I will not settle this case. I will have my day in court. I will clear my name, and then he settled with a big check.
And she did the same thing, and she settled.
He's a senior member of the royal family.
And she settled.
He was the one accused of sexual assault of in America, a minor. And he settled that case without clearing his name.
She was
you
not
say he's innocent. How do we know he's innocent?
She was not a minor for sexual purposes in either England or the United States of America, the states that were concerned. She was over the age of consent. Pairs rarely.
That's not true either. I'm sorry, that's actually not true. She was under the age of
what
lawful.
Is not true?
She was considered a legal minor in at least one of the American locations where the sex was alleged to have happened. But my point is, you say Andrew was innocent.
That's not so.
That is so, actually.
The state that... It's not so, because the state of New York is 16 years old or 17, and in England it is over. She was 17 years old, so I'm sorry, that's absolute rubbish.
No, it's not rubbish.
She was over the age of sexual consent.
I don't think you understand the
both territories.
You don't understand the law of consent, age of consent in American states. It's fine.
Now, you may say, what does any of this have to do with Harry and Meghan? Well, there's two things. Number one, you saw here, Piers would tell Lady C that she was mistaken in the law, and she would not accept that. She was unwilling to hear that she might have had something incorrect about what she was saying. Well, that's something that you don't want a historian to feel, because if they do, you can't trust 100% their reporting. So that was problem number one. Problem number two is that she obviously has a preconceived willingness to defend people who might not be defendable as long as they are from a certain group of people. Well, that's going to go over a lot of ways. She is clearly on the side of, at least in this case, Prince Andrew. And since she is, well, then you have to assume that she might be a part of the royal family's PR presentation overall, and that would affect how she is going to report on Harry, Meghan, and the whole Markle family. That's a bias. And when you have a bias, when you are, and to be clear, all people have a bias. It's very rare that any historian doesn't have a bias. This doesn't make her wrong. It doesn't make her a bad historian. It just means that when you consider her reporting, you have to take it into account. It needs to be a part of your evaluation of her as a source. It doesn't mean she's wrong. It doesn't mean that she's a bad historian. It's just something that needs to be considered as a part of the equation of evaluating her credibility as a source. Another thing that needs to be considered is Lady C's own financial stake in the story of the Markle family, because the Markle family is her primary source for her book. And because they are the primary source for her book, it gives her a financial stake in their narrative. It means that supporting their position and supporting their story supports her own financial gain, because it gives credibility to her own book. And something that I think might be a little bit underrated in the discussion is not just her presentation of Harry and Meghan's story, but also her presentation of Diana's story, and her presentation of the Queen's story, and her presentation of the Queen Mothers. You see, this is someone who has multiple books in this genre, and as such, it's not just her credibility on one book, it's her credibility on all of her books. So that gives her a very strong incentive to defend the people who were her resource. Because if the people who were her resource lose credibility, so does she for her books on Harry and Meghan. And by default, you then have to question her credibility on her other books. This isn't a personal attack. This is the reality that she has a financial stake in this, which, in my opinion, makes it inappropriate that she is still involved with the Markles, because she has a financial stake in their credibility, and that, to me, is a conflict of interest. It's not personal against Lady C. It's a conflict of interest that's really not acceptable for a biographer or a royal historian. Now, another thing that is important when you are evaluating a historian is how they react to challenges to their credibility or their narrative. Now, I had originally planned to include in this a bit about the way that Lady C attacked a smaller YouTuber, SHADY, where she had been reviewing Lady C's book on Princess Diana, and she came across a particular passage that she felt Lady C misrepresented, and her reaction to that, in my opinion, was very telling. It revealed that Lady C was not quite willing to hear any other opinion other than her own, which is not what you would expect from a historian. I'm not going to go over that again because I ended up doing that in a live stream. So that's why I'm showing you the thumbnail, so you can go find the live stream that I did discuss this in, and me and Del Plummer. Great. I love Del. Del's awesome. If you ever have the opportunity to come to a live stream with me and Del, we have a lot of fun. We're a little bit naughty. So come join us. But if you want to go see exactly what happened in that instance, and Lady C's reaction to that challenge to her resources and her opinions in that instance, you can go there and see it. I just didn't want to repeat it because there's no reason to go over it again. And I would really like to stress, nothing that I am saying here is personal. This is not a personal attack against Lady C. This is an evaluation of a resource that is important to the Megxit story. Because without a doubt, Lady C provides a very important resource. It's an important resource, but it should not be considered the only resource. Now, I've already said this, but I do want to stress this very much. None of this is personal. These are things that are a part of Lady C's biases and her perceptions of any situation. It's perfectly normal for people to have a bias. We all have them. It's a matter of being aware of them when we look at how a person views any situation. And I think I still have it on my channel. If you go, I believe it's called a bias experiment or something like that. And it is. And it's a great little experiment that you can do and that you can see and understand what a bias is and how it can affect your interpretation of any situation. And the reality is, everyone will bring in their bias to any report of any situation. Now, I also had a bit where I was going to go into her potential bias about titles and the potential of King Charles removing Harry and Meghan's titles. Because the issue is that Lady C has moved that goalpost for the royal family. She used to say that it was necessary for Parliament in order for any title to be removed. Well, as time got closer and there was a bill in Parliament to do that, to remove those titles, Lady C then changed her position, and she changed it to, now the Commonwealth must be involved in that. Now, unfortunately, she's the only person who I have ever found to say that, and she is basing that off of the preamble to a particular Commonwealth decision. Now, I already did a video on that, so I thought about it, and I decided I didn't want to repeat that, especially right now when there is a lot of talk about the potential removing of the titles. I didn't want to repeat it in a edited down form because I really think that you need to see the whole part. So again, I think I've done quite a few videos on this. So I'm going to link the one that in particular deals with that preamble and the whole idea that that preamble is a part of a law, because preambles are not law. Preambles are the introduction to the law, and they don't get ratified, and so they don't become law. So because of the complexity of that, again, I would rather you watch the whole video than just a portion of it, because I don't want to give too edited a version and not give the whole story. That video does it, and it tells the whole story. So I'd rather stick with that. Now, I would say that most people do not know that in 2024, Lady C was actually in a movie. She was a guest, kind of a cameo appearance, in a movie known as A Gangster's Kiss. And she played the matriarch of a crime family.
I'm great, thank you. Are you excited about today?
I certainly am. I think it's wonderful to be the head of a crime family. It's heaven on earth.
How did this come about? How did they get in contact with you to do this?
Well, this was done through my agent.
So how did it come about then?
Nice agent is David Samuel of ASM, and he and his son are involved, and they asked me to do it, and I did it. I thought it was such fun, you know.
What was your highlight doing this?
Being really naughty, but I can't say. You have to see the film.
Have you got any memorable moments from filming?
Several, because they did some of the film at Castle Goring, where I live. So even when I wasn't being on, they were around, and they were great to be with. It was really good fun.
Now, although I have no doubt that Lady C playing the matriarch of a crime family was a wonderful job of casting someone appropriate for the role, someone who would have the gravitas to convey that and to pull off that performance. But I would think that the fact that it was filmed at Castle Goring may have had something to do with her involvement as a member of the cast. That is just my assumption. I could be wrong. But like I said, regardless, the fact that she was cast in that sort of a role, I have no doubt she would do a wonderful job at it.
Up for it, or were you at first? Did it take some persuasion?
I was very up for it from the beginning because I know them, and I knew it was going to be a good experience, and it was. And what better than to be the head of a crime family?
What can we expect from you for the rest of the year? I know you do a lot of stuff with GB News, etc.
Well, I do nice stuff. I have a TV channel of my own, a YouTube channel.
My mother loves it. Watches you all the time.
Thank you. Tell her thank you. So, and I do my regular stuff, and I do my writing, and I do my charity stuff. So yeah, I'm always busy. I don't think I'll be doing many movies.
Why not?
Well, I don't think I'm going to have such a good offer every other day of the week. You know, this I think is a one-off. And I thought it was wonderful.
Now, I think that I have covered most of the things that I had wanted to cover. And, in fact, most of the things that I said I would cover, either by going over them in this video or linking to where I have already gone over them. Those are the important things. And I don't foresee any need for a third video, although I will never say never. But I did also want to have a little bit of fun. And it was interesting. When I saw this interview between Sean Atwood and Lady C, I saw Lady C in jeans. I thought this was the greatest thing. I never would have imagined that Lady C would have sat down with anyone wearing a pair of jeans. But I loved it. I thought it was fantastic. But seeing her in jeans, I think that she might be amenable to one last little clip that I wanted to include. And I hope YouTube lets me do this. I will try and break it up and kind of change it up a little bit just to ensure that YouTube will allow it. It seems that Lady C, in addition to I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here, and in addition to the TV show where she redid The Castle, Lady C also went on a dating show. And honestly, I think that this makes her much more relatable and much more down to earth than normally she allows herself to be portrayed. So I don't think this is a bad clip. I just think this is a fun clip. And so I want to end the video with that. So let's look at it. Like I said, this is a dating show, one of those reality dating shows, and this is, celebrity first dates. Sadly, I did have here another clip. It was a clip of Lady C on I think it's called Celebrity First Dates, where they send celebrities out on blind dates. It's actually a very cute clip. I actually enjoyed it. I was very positive about it, but unfortunately, it does have copyright restrictions, and so I had to remove it. It is available if you are a member. You can see it in the member-only version of the video, or you can also, it's available on YouTube. Just search for Lady C, Celebrity First Dates, something along those lines, and you should find it. It's actually a very cute clip. I'm disappointed that I wasn't allowed to include it. It kind of showed a very lovable side to Lady C. So I was disappointed that I couldn't include it, but it's out there if you want to find it. And like I said, if you are a member, you can see it in the member-only version of this video. But even though you aren't getting that clip, I realized that I never really explained why I chose that particular photo for the thumbnail. So I am adding that in here. And the reason is, if you notice this photo, this Christmas card of Meghan, Harry, and Archie, it seems as though you have Archie in the center and Meghan and Harry equal in the background. But if you look more closely, you will note that, in fact, the photo of Meghan is bigger and it's clear, whereas Harry is fuzzy and smaller. Well, that's kind of very similar to the photo that I used on the thumbnail. Now, it is my opinion that there is nothing disgusting in this video. This is an honest evaluation of one of the important resources in the Megxit drama, and I don't think that there has been any personal attacks against Lady C in this. Do I question some of her positions? Yes, I question how they would affect her reporting of the Megxit story. But that is what every historian would expect to happen when it comes to evaluating their credibility. And she should have nothing to complain about in this video. I was very careful to keep this video from being personal and to just relate the basics and to explain each step that I was taking in the evaluation. And so, if you are going to complain about this, I don't know what to tell you. You're not being honest with yourself is the only thing that I can say. And you're not being honest about this video or the importance of Lady C in the Megxit community. She is an important resource. And as such, it would be a discredit to her if we don't evaluate her position in it. Do I think that she has become too personally involved with the Markle family to the point that it has created a conflict of interest? Yes. Yes, I do. And that's my opinion, and I am entitled to have it when I evaluate her credibility. So, that's what I think, and that's what I believe. And I really don't see that there's anything disgusting or objectionable about this video. I look forward to reading your thoughts down in the comments. Thank you very much for listening, and I hope you all have a great day, filled with love, laughter, and of course, dancing.
Dancing